Okay, I'd like to reconvene the meeting for April 15th. So we have a delegation, but he's still driving his bus, so he'll come in during the meeting. So I suggest that we'll move if we could just move the delegation down to after the development reports, if that works for everybody. Yeah. Okay, so then we'll go straight to our development reports. 18.1, the DVP for Monroe Ave, and our director or our planning manager, please.
Okay, good evening, Council and Mayor. So I'm presenting today a development variance DVP 24-017 for consideration. So the property is located at Monroe Ave here, and it is 5.93 acres, and it's currently zoned as A1 agricultural small acreage, and it is zoned within the ALR as well, with a designation through OCP as well as agriculture. So the proposed development variance permit considers 3 variances required. The first one being that it only that it go from 1 farm home plate on a lot, as per section 4.11 of the zoning bylaw, to vary it to allow for 2 farm home plates, proposed A and B, which is noted further in the slide there on a image that I'll go to afterwards. The second variance request is that a farm home plate not directly abut Monroe Ave, which is to vary it from a farm home plate shall abut a highway. And the last one being that notwithstanding 4.11B, a farm home plate may be located on lands assessed by an agrologist as containing soil conditions not suitable for farming, and that is being proposed to be varied to not require an agrologist report. So we have 2 farm home plates being proposed. The first one, farm home plate A, being located around the existing primary dwelling, which is noted with the yellow box. And then we have farm home plate B, which is noted as the red box on the accessory building on the far right there. The total meters squared is within the 905 square feet as permitted by the farm home plate zoning regulation 4.11. So the background on this, it's being brought to council due to it having an enforcement file being created in 2023. This was prior to it being the building that it's currently located in for a carriage house in the accessory building, which is noted as the cannery building in 2018. In 2023, bylaw noted enforcement on that particular structure due to the carriage house being proposed. And in 2024, a development variance permit was received by Development Services in order to bring that into compliance, which resulted in that DVP, the 3 DVP requests for this application. So looking at the farm home plate regulations and what's being proposed. As noted, it's being requested to vary from 1 to 2, as well as it being varied from being on a highway immediately to not abutting it at about 63 meters. And then noting that a agrologist report was not provided at the time, and staff are saying that this was not required as the location of the 2 farm home plates are on existing structures and existing areas and do not require consideration of farm land that's within it, as it's not abutting it or what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry. It's not impeding on farmland that's existing on the property. So looking at the carriage house regulations, there are none being varied, but to look at just to ensure that it met the requirements and regulations, it meets this requirement for the principal dwelling and carriage house distance between them at 36 meters. So between the 2, it is 36 meters away. The maximum height of the carriage house is 6.5 meters and what's permitted is 7.5. As per the ALR, as well as our own regulations, the maximum floor area of a carriage house must be 90 square meters and is just under at 89.47. and on-site septic. So a lot that is 1 hectare or greater in area must be connected to an on-site sanitary sewer system. And that is currently the case for this property and the carriage house that's located in the cannery accessory building. Looking at the A1 zone regulations as well, the farm home plate regulation for A1 is 905 meters squared, and it's being met at 903.06. The height of a carriage house is 7.5, and we have it at 6.5. And again, the 90 square meters for A1 zoning for a carriage house is 90 square meters, and it's being met at 89.47. And again, the septic is also being met as well. So looking at the official community plan, so the intent of the farm home plate and managing agricultural uses on farmlands and residential development, the idea is that we want to limit impacts on existing agricultural lands and uses by limiting where residential uses are occurring on farm properties. So we examine the OCP and we ensure that any proposed residential uses are not impeding on them. And in this case, looking at the carriage house and where it's located in an existing accessory building, it is not going into any other farmland around it. It's not expanding out, and neither is the farm home plate that's being proposed. With the ALR, because it is in the ALR lands, again, the additional residence is 90 square meters, which meets it for the agricultural land reserve regulations. Sorry, I'm just gonna take a drink of water. So for internal and external circulation, we received some from our building department. With the carriage home, as it is unpermitted currently. Sorry. I apologize, I'm recovering from a cold. I'm fine, it's just my throat is a little dry. So the building department is going to require a building permit for the carriage home if the development variance permit is approved by council. So this has been noted in the internal comments. The Agricultural Land Commission was circulated as part of this because lands are in the ALR. And again, reinforce the 90 square meter requirement for an additional residence. And because we have reviewed it internally, as well as ensuring with the applicant that it meets those 90 square meters, we also recognize that based off those comments and what's been provided, we had no concerns with going for a non-adhering residential use application. So we did not need to go to submit that with the ALC. And Interior Health had no objections as well, as they confirmed water and on-site septic. In December of 2024, the application was brought to the Agricultural Advisory Committee, and they proceeded with the approval to recommend to council to support the issuance of the development variance permit of DVP 24-007. They had only one question and concern, which was just whether further expansion of residential uses could occur on the property if this was approved by council, if they so choose. And again, we have within the farm home plate, we have that maximum 905 square meters. And based off of what is being proposed by the applicant, they have very limited area to move and expand out. And it's also intended to only capture residential uses within the farm home plate. And at this point, the proposed farm home plates A and B would meet both of those. So to expand it further would be having to go back and explaining those regulations. It would be very unlikely to occur. So for staff considerations, when reviewing this, we wanted to look at whether it was feasible to have a different location on site for a carriage house. We determined that there were no other best areas on the site due to the area behind the house being likely the septic field for the original dwelling, as well as the fact that there were no other areas on the site that were unfarmed that would allow for additional residential uses. And it was in an existing building with the intent by the applicant to build out the carriage house. Sorry. Okay.
It's got some things.
Yeah, we need that at some point, sorry. Again, in consideration of this, because it's an existing building for the carriage house, the farm home plate is not going to be expanding. Thank you. Farm home plate isn't going to be expanding onto the farmland. The intent is to contain it completely within the parameters of both the existing residence and the proposed carriage house. So no additional farmland around it is proposed as being part of the farm home plate. So staff's recommendation is that council approve the variance for DVP 24-017. I must have incorrectly put the number in one of the other slides there. I apologize. For the purposes of a carriage house on property 4414 Monroe, to vary the zoning bylaw, section 4.11, to increase the farm home plates from 1 to 2, to not directly but Monroe Ave. It's not required to call this report. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Take a break. Council, any questions? Council Van Elsen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, reminds me of one just down the road from this location where that came to us. And there was proposed to have the carriage house abut up against Monroe, but unfortunately to do so, they probably would have lost about 2 acres of high density apples. Then the owner came back with another proposal to put it on the I don't know, gully edge, kind of overlooking the railroad track, and now it didn't displace any orchard, and it's pretty much similar to this one. If it went, you know, with the home plate, there'd be about 2 acres of peaches that would have to come out to, you know, accommodate the structure in the septic field. So I have no problem bringing this resolution forward.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Peak. Any further discussion, question? Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, my question is about, I appreciate the information that that the proposals within the total farm home plate limitations, as well as with fitting underneath the maximum allowed carriage house allocations as per ALC regulations. My question actually is about the existing cannery building or the farm use building. That's the structure that's on the property already in existence. If there was, and the carriage house is on top of that, is that correct? Just from what I understand. My question being that the farm accessory use building on the property would be an allowable use of that land. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Betts. So it's both a bottom and it's a 2-floor carriage house. So there's an entrance that goes up from what I can see inside the building, and then, sorry, not inside the building, around the side building there. And then there is a floor on the top as well. So let me see if I can, I think there was, yeah, this is a rough. So the image that's shown here is on the top part. The bottom part is just more open. So the idea is that you'd come into the bottom and then there would be access to the top as well. And oops, there we go. Sorry, and so the question was the compliance with, can you repeat the last part of the second part of your question, please?
Yes, of course. So I wasn't sure that the whole building itself was a carriage house or just that small one corner of it. The reason I ask is because the rest of that building would be an allowable use on agricultural land, right? So I'm just double checking, because to me then, I mean, trying to have 2 structures within one reduces a footprint. And I think that that's a smart use of land. If wherever possible, we can try and do 2 things in one spot. It's going to reduce driveway requirements and just the extra land that it takes to achieve additional buildings on a property. So I can see how this one makes sense. And I appreciate how it fits within some of the limitations that have been established, even though this is still asking for certain variance requests.
Okay, thank you. No other comments. I'll call a question. Motion's on the floor. Maybe just get up on the screen there. The last slide. Okay, so the motion's on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor? None opposed? That carries. So, Mr. Harris, we'll come to you after the next item, okay? Thanks. 18.2 DVP for Watson Avenue and our planner, Ms. Tui.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just where to Steve brings it up. There we are. Okay, so tonight I'm presenting a development variance permit, DVP 24025, and that's located at 16200 Watson Avenue. The parcel in question is just over 14 acres with an approximate 9 acres in arable land. The applicant is requesting 4 variances to the farm home plate regulations laid out in section 411.1 of our zoning bylaw. The property is zoned A1 small agriculture with a OCP designation of agriculture. The parcel is within the agricultural land reserve and thus must meet the regulations to the land use. The ALR use regulation, which was amended in February of 2019, talks to addressing changes that include directly curbing mega mansions and restricting residential uses in part to help ensure that farmland is affordable for future generations to purchase. Initially, the applicant proposed 1 farm home plate. This entailed the principal existing house and the proposed building with the swimming pool in the same location as presented here, but with 1 large perimeter around both of them. This option resulted in a farm home plate that exceeded the regulated allowance by more than double. Expanding the area also would have created additional opportunities for further residential use expansion beyond the agriculture. With consultation with staff and a redesign, the applicant has created 2 smaller individual farm home plates, dividing the permitted 905 between the 2 sites. So site 1 is the original existing principal dwelling, and that's 315 square meters, and the proposed carriage house and accessory uses of 590 square meters. The position of the existing house, sorry, I'll move back. The position of the proposed building has not changed in position since the redesign. It is staying in the same position and sited 24 metres away from the principal dwelling as it sits today. Staff are of the opinion that there is an opportunity here to site the proposed structures closer to the principal dwelling and not within a crop producing area. For context, this is the following renderings are the proposed secondary dwelling, the outdoor living space, and the proposed swimming pool. As you can see from this rendering, the large open barn area structure, this can either be used for storage for the farm, agro-tourism, or potential events or weddings indicated by the applicant. Significant area here for the proposed design. Significant area indicated to outdoor livable space, patio and swimming pool. The blue outline is the farm home plate boundary. The orange outdoor is the footprint of the outdoor patio area proposed. And then the small yellow area is the actual livable indoor space, the 90 square meters. So within our official community plan, the policies encourage residential uses to be contained within a farm home plate, and thus to reduce impacts on the agricultural land. To go into our zoning bylaw, the farm home plate regulations are as follows. As you can see here, the applicant is proposing 4 variances to increase the farm home plates from 1 to 2. And in a positive note, the 2 farm home plates have been created to not exceed the 905 square meters. The second variance is to allow a secondary farm home plate to not directly abut Watson Avenue or Jones Flat. And just to explain that, if you are looking to increase a farm home plate or create a second farm home plate, one of the recommendations is to have it next to an abutting road, as close to the road as possible, so there's no disruption to the land by utilities and such. The third request the applicant has requested not to vary the regulation where you have to submit an archaeologist, I can't speak tonight, sorry, my tongue, report, and this is to support the application, and they have chose to decline that and vary that section. And then the final one is the lot coverage. The lot coverage in a farm home plate is regulated to 45%, but with the design and layout of the 2 individual farm home plates, they are required to increase the lot coverage to 72.4, and that's across the 2 sites. So onto the carriage house regulations. There's no contraventions here. They were able to meet the regulations of the carriage house. Maximum height 7.5. They're proposing 5.5. They, with a few redesigns, they were able to meet the 90 square meter of the livable space. Carriage house has a minimum distance from the existing dwelling of 3 meters, and they're proposing 24. So just to give you a little bit of information on the land capacity for agriculture. So the District of Summerland mandates one of these reports to be submitted if the applicant proposes residential construction outside of an existing farm home plate. The purpose of the report is to describe the soil's limitations for agricultural use and to demonstrate the soil's suitability for its intended use. This is done through drainage testing, soil texture, fertility, stoniness. This data is then used to complete a report with recommendations on items such as planning and optimizing farm practices. In this instance, the applicant chose to vary this regulation and not submit such a report. Through our internal and external circulation and referrals, the most notable comments were from our fire department, who had concerns over the existing driveway and future fire mitigation as well. The electrical department also wanted to make the clients aware that there may be some longer wait times for any upgrading equipment required. And the ALC also requires an applicant to submit a notice of intent to them directly when a non-farm use is proposed and if the significant fill or soil is required for this project. I brought the file to our Agricultural Advisory Committee. That was on the 20th of March of this year. The main comments that were came forward was, why was the agrologist, I can't talk tonight, agrologist report required? What does it tell you? So that's one of the reasons that I had that slide in tonight, just to expand on that. One of our non-voting committee members from the ALC asked what the primary use of the structure was proposing. There was also discussion on alternative means of income for farmers, weddings, events, agritourism, and whether this should take precedence over cultivation. In the end, we had a healthy discussion on the motion. A motion was put on the table to actually amend the recommendation as stated by staff. And the motion was put forward to support the development. Unfortunately, there was no seconder, and so this motion failed. A second motion was put on the table to recommendation to take the recommendation of staff as presented for non-support of the application. This was moved, seconded, and carried 6-1 against. To overview the request variances, our official community plan, the request variances don't meet the policies and objectives of the OCP, which talks to limiting encroachment into our agricultural lands. The proposed variances would result in residential development on productive and active agricultural lands. The proposed second farm home plate is actually an increase of 275 square metres from the principal existing farm home plate. An accessory building in our zoning bylaw is defined as normally being incidental, subordinate to the principal dwelling, which is not the case in this proposal. The proposed residential building will be located on active farmland and doesn't offer alternative options through the report. And with that, staff are recommending the denial of the 4 variances proposed at 16200 Watson Avenue. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Also, because staff are recommending denial, the applicant is here tonight and may want to speak to council.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So before we have questions to staff, because it is a denial from recommendation, the applicant can speak, can address council. So we'll just invite Mr. Chick up and he'll present to us. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, council members. So we purchased this property in 2019 from the longstanding Summerland Fire Chief Glenn Noble and purchased Blueberry Hill. And we really looked at the property and said, you know, there's a lot of wineries in this town. What's kind of the overarching vision? And so we don't have any experience in wineries, but we decided that it was probably the perfect place for an agritourism. So that's really been our kind of focus, is to create something special for the community up there. And this is really step one in doing that. When we've traveled around the world, we kind of think back to the meaningful stays we've had in small farming villages and stuff like that. And thought what a great thing if we could bring something like that to Summerland. So with that, many of you probably know this because it's a fairly large property in the middle of town. It was farmed when we bought it. Just there was flat hay fields throughout. we put in every single vine there, every post, every wire, all the irrigation. So really we took it from what was a non-productive piece of land to what it is today. So we are truly farmers and we look at it as such. We declined the agrologist report or didn't think that it was warranted simply because every inch of our property we feel is farmable and every inch of our property has farming on it, other than the large banks, which we're planning to do some stuff on now. We've got some grants in for things like running sheep and flowers and all that kind of stuff. So we're kind of assessing that as we go along. But if we were to put this carriage house down in the bottom, we would be pulling out Chardonnay. If we were putting it over on the slope bank, we would be pulling out Gamay Noir, Pinot Noir. So anywhere in the property, the whole thing is planted, other than there's one gully up by the house that is, you know, there's a significant dip in there. So you can't plant that area. So I think also it's important to just let you guys know that I think this is being painted a little bit worse than it really is. If we were to detach that breezeway piece of building from this, really it would be a lot smaller. We'd have a 960 square foot house, and then we would have an accessory building for farmland, which we're allowed to have. I should be able to cover 10% of that property with accessory building, which would be 1.4 acres. It's, you know, we're not even close to that. But yeah, if we were to detach that from the house, we did it from a style point. And really, we added that piece for a couple of reasons. Yes, it gives us the ability to do weddings, gives us the ability to store tractors, put fruit under when we pick fruit one day and the winery doesn't show up until the next day, host long table dinners, all those things where you like, you know, use it for the farming aspect, but also be able to like bring the outside community to the farm, if you will. I think that was kind of our vision, to show people what it's like to live on a farm, what it's like to farm, all those kind of things. So, so we really have looked at this in the lens of, yes, we want to do short-term rentals out of there and use it as, you know, a secondary income, but also what else can we kind of like bolt on and just be crafty with the design to, you know, have a couple things that it can handle. So I think the other thing that we could do that would bring this in line is if we're currently AL or A1, which is the current farm home plate for A1 is 905 square meters, which A1 is properties up to 4.9 acres. A2 is a 19-acre property and you get to 1,200 square meters. We're 14 acres, so we're probably closer to A2 than A1. So I don't know, maybe take that into consideration when you make your call. But at the end of the day, our intent is to build something like this and then come back to council with another build for agritourism. And hopefully we can get 4 or 5 units up there to share with people from outside the community and bring them here.
Okay, thank you. Just hang on there. Council will probably have some questions. So, Councillor Trainer.
Thanks for adding to the discussion and explaining some more about your property. So I did read Heather's People Plus Space, her letter for the application rationale, and she did mention the A1 to A2. So you guys are 5.74 hectares?
Yeah, whatever, 14, we're 14.25 acres.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you bought the property, did you replant it all?
So when we bought the property, it was Timothy and alfalfa. So it was just hay fields. And Glenn ran hay on there for local cattlemen. I think there was someone up in Garnet that would come and cut it for him. And we put in all the posts, all the wire, all the plants, all the infrastructure for vines. Yeah. We also shaped, there was one block that's along Watson Road on the east side of the property. It would be kind of the northeast block. That would have been like maybe an acre and a bit of Timothy and hay. And what we did was we sloped that bank through a development or a development permit with you guys. And we ended up getting 3 acres of grapes. So we've taken this and made it much more productive. Right now, I currently have an approval to excavate a bit of the bank down at our bottom Chardonnay block along Watson Road. My intention is to create another acre of farmable land in there. And there's 2 old barns down in the bottom that are really just like decrepit old, whatever. We hang license plates on them and signs and stuff for people to take pictures of. But eventually, that spot would be earmarked for an actual barn where, you could actually store fertilizers and pesticides and whatever you need to, for farming, right? So, yeah.
Also, any other questions? Yeah, Councilor Manelli?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to our planner, so secondary home plate could,
We'll ask questions of Seth.
oh, I apologize, Mr.
Any
Mayor.
questions with Mr. Check first? Councilor Betts?
Thank you for adding to the presentation today. I think it's really interesting to get a little bit more context about your vision and about some of the additional works that have happened that you guys have done on there. My question, in your last comment, actually adding that you would look to build on your agritourism opportunities on the property. In seeing that come together, I mean, knowing that council will then have to look at where additional buildings would go, is that something that would again take farmland as well? So just kind of looking, is that going to end up being beside a structure that we are looking at, that we're discussing today?
Yeah, totally. I think if we look at the overall property, the first thing is like mitigating any investment risk, right? And so you're allowed to have up to 8 if you go to the ALC, and of the units that don't have kitchens, they're all attached to each other, those kind of things. I don't know if that's necessarily what the market needs right now, or what should be the vision for the property. So when we look at like kind of mitigating the financial risk, it's can we build something that a short-term renter would want, 900 square foot, 1 bedroom, 2 bathroom place with like a great outdoor area where they can stay in the vineyard. But in the event that it doesn't go well and people don't enjoy coming to Summerland to see all that we have to offer, we can long-term rent it, right? If we get great feedback on that, we'll take the feedback that we get from the people that come to stay and we'll say, you know what, this kind of customer really likes whatever. And then we would come with a plan. So I think it's a little early in the discussion for that, but this is kind of our first toe into going down that direction. But really, like we have a beautiful view up there. We're right in the middle of the city. We're on the Garnet Valley Agritourism Trail. There's lots of wineries around. Like, we would love nothing more than to create a situation where that was a thriving business and we could bring people from outside, from the city, bring them here, and then they could tour around the wineries and restaurants and all those wonderful things that we have to offer, right? So a little early to say, but eventually, like, again, I look at the whole entire 14-acre square as like an asset of like, what can we make the most of it? Like, I'm not here to pull out a vine just to pull out a vine, right? Like, trust me, it breaks my heart to even do that. Like, we've pulled out some because of the freeze, like, kills us, right? So yeah, we would try to minimize that as much as possible because we get paid for grapes. That's part of our business, right? So yeah, I hope that answers. Sorry.
Yeah, follow up.
Just to follow up, is there a reason then, I know the topography is challenging, but if you could speak to that, is there a reason that the carriage house wasn't proposed for on the knoll near the main house?
Yeah, so if you look directly to the west of the main house, there's a block of Pinot Noir that's still there and is planted. So we have not purchased vines for that block. The block that it's in was Gamay Noir. It was pulled. So that was could have put it on this side of the house, could have put it on this house. If you go directly east of the house, there's a big gully that We were gonna try to farm, but we flipped a tractor in there, like it's kind of like doesn't give it justice when you're looking at the topography from up top, but the hill is like this steep. It's like, I think the road used to go down back when people used to come up to Blueberry, back when it was Makeout Point. Like, I think that was, so there's some counselors, there's some counselors laughing at that one. I like it. So there used to be a road that came up there, and it was a really steep kind of gully, and we would have to bring in truckloads and truckloads of fill in order to build a house right directly east of the current house. Yeah.
Thank you for speaking to
Yeah.
that.
Thanks.
Just on the point of the agritourism buildings, so you intend to build, do you know where you would plan to build them? Would it be on one of the two home plates, or would you be looking elsewhere?
Well, the agritourism doesn't need to be within the home plates, but I would think to probably congregate around this one, maybe see, we have, where the bank drops off, there's setbacks, right? We've got a 15-meter setback. That's why the current house is there, and we can't get too close to the bank on any spot. So I would think the natural spot for it would be to the west of the house, as close to the bank as you could get. But again, we're restricted by the rules, and it comes down to design and what does the district want, because, you know, if you had the perfect world and you could look at it and say, I'm going to put, you know, one over there in the corner, a little cabin, and one over here because, you know, I can get a tractor turn around it, one down in the slope block, you could do that, but they all have to be attached. They need one roof. Like there's a bunch of rules that we're kind of forced to follow. So I think we would, if we get good positive feedback, we would probably rely on the experts for that kind of advice. But it makes sense to have it up top, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks.
Now I'll turn it to questions for staff. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to our planner, if I may. So they could get a secondary farm home plate on Jones Flat Road or on Watson Road in the existing vineyard blocks. And what I'm trying to get to is, like, you can do it there, or you could do it on Watson or Jones Flat, or you can do it up top. You're still displacing the same amount of vineyard, theoretically. So, you know, like, you're going to lose, if you went down below on either Watson or Jones Flat, you're going to lose that agri land for a home plate. So up top probably makes better sense. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Okay,
Sorry, it's a kind of a question.
not rude. Is that a question? Did you want to respond?
Thank you. I know it wasn't much of a question, sorry, but I just wanted to verify a few points. Just to what Tyler had said, agritourism accommodation does have to be within the farm home plate. If you're building new units, you have to have it within the farm home plate. And if you don't want to have it in the farm home plate, you need an agrological report, and you'll need another variance. The other thing as well is to speak to what Councillor Van Elfen said about putting it down there. The whole point of the farm home plate is to stop residential sprawl. It's to keep the residential use as close knitted as possible. So there is, all the agricultural land is used for cultivation, whether that is for grapes or for food preservation. I'm not going to get down that argument, but certainly that is the whole point of the farm home plate. The staff do feel that there's opportunity to have that secondary one really close to the house. There's a lot of driveway there. There's big open space on the grass. It doesn't have to be next to the gully. That's not staff's prerogative to tell the applicant where to put it. We can only give them recommendations. But certainly, the whole point is to keep it as tight together as possible and take as little agricultural land away as possible. And just to put on the note with what the ALC spoke of, and I said in my presentation about keeping agricultural land agricultural for our future generations, so they can afford these farms, which have become unaffordable because of residential sprawl that's happened on them. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patton, then Peak.
Thank you, Worship. So thanks for your presentation and thank you for yours. When you take a look at this layout and you take a look at the one, let's build it and ask for forgiveness just before this, very similar, very, very similar. So I really, really like this layout. I think what they've done to the property, because I was up there when Glenn owned it, and they've done phenomenal things. So when you talk about the farm home plates and mega mansions, I don't think that a 90 square meter carriage house with a farm storage building attached to it falls into a mega mansion. So I think that in this case, I think it's been done very well. I think that its amount of land that they're using is very small. And I think that if this was built and came to us, it would go through. So, and it's been shown by the one before, and I'm sorry, but I really like this, and I think I'll do a motion to move it forward.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Trainer, Councillor Peak.
If there's a motion on the floor, I'm not going to speak to what I was going to at the moment.
Councillor Barkle.
I'll speak to each of the variances that are proposed to be varied here. So he wants to, so it's splitting the farm home plate. Well, on its own, that's no big deal. I can go along with that. The second one, the farm home plate is not immediately abutting a highway. Well, that's not a big deal either. It depends on the property, that there's just so many exceptions to that, even when it was feasible. But in this case, the house is up there and it just makes sense and it's not a practical thing to do. So I'm not too worried about that one. The third one is changing the lot coverage from 45% to 72%. Well, I've never understood why you should limit the lot coverage on a home plate, because if the home plate is the area that's not being farmed, it's not being farmed, whether it's covered by a house, a rock garden, or whatever it might be, or a swimming pool. So that one I don't have any problem with because the whole rule didn't. And then the agrologist report variance, the fourth one. Well, as the applicant said, the whole property is farmable. It's not one of these situations, well, yeah, it's kind of obvious it should be over there. It's rocky or hilly or something like that, other than the gully for the in front of the house, or not to the front, to the west, and the steep banks. In some properties, there isn't anywhere you can put something that isn't going to be on agricultural land. So, and even then, I won't go back there, but so I support the motion as supported by Councillor Patton, and those are the reasons why.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think for me, I really appreciate the role of council in and staff. Staff are there to present the bylaws as written and to review applications that are in black and white. And us as your neighbors and peers are here to evaluate applications with a second lens by your neighbors as a council and as a group of peers who can try and see rationale and reason and just consider other factors. And that's why these two sides kind of work together in tandem, even if there's differing opinions. And I just think that that's important. I think that's kind of our role. I think that the items that were mentioned in support are fine. And for me, one of the things that stands out is that you've added farmable land. So for me, that's really strong, that there's been a compromise, there's been a give back. And I'm sure at no insignificant cost, obviously. But to me, that's just a really strong component to the application.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor B.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that the values of what we hold true on agricultural land and the uses are upheld by the opportunity that this property owner has brought forward. So although I certainly understand and agree with the fact that staff represent the decision-making based on the policy that we have, and that is how they are able to do what they do, and there was no agrologist report to augment that their recommendation follows exactly what it should. But I think in this case that the values of the opportunity with the farmland is actually still being achieved.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. It's on the screen here. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. I'll now ask our delegation to come up, take a little break from development here. Mr. Harris, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you for having me. Sorry for the delay because I had to finish my route. So it was busy. So good evening. Some of you know me. My name is Trevor. I want to state that I am not here representing BC Transit or Barry and Smith in any capacity. I'm doing this as a transit advocate, a Summerland resident, and who's coincidentally one of the permanent Summerland 30 drivers. As you know, we currently use the small RBOC bus since the beginning of the service has started. It is about 26 feet, 6 inches long, and sits about 21 people without wheelchairs. I'm going to bring attention to this, why we need the bigger bus. On March 26th, our current small bus had to go in for its maintenance, and there was no spares available, which was a shock. So they gave me a 35-foot Grand West vicinity bus. It seats 30 and can hold 2 wheelchairs. On my 10:30 departure from the library, if I had the RBOC still, I would have been full completely by the time I got to the IGA stop. I already had 21 on board, and I would have had to unfortunately turn passengers away, which is what we don't want to do. Luckily, having the mid-size bus, the 35-foot bus, I was able to fit everybody comfortably, and everybody was happy, and we got everyone to and from Penticton. So a few reasons why I think now is the time to upgrade our bus from the 26-foot 6-inch bus is a couple of reasons. One, the bigger bus will give passengers more comfort for the ride to and from Summerland. I can attest, I have one of our regular passengers who was on the bus that day. Also, it can also entice, being a bigger bus, more riders, because if you get on a bus and you see it's 3/4 full on a small bus, would you want to get on that bus? No, probably not. So we can, with the picture here, this is our current inside of our RBOC. The seats are up because I just mopped the bus. So currently with the 4, if you have 2 wheelchairs on board, you only fit 13. Imagine leaving the library at 12 people already on board. There's 1 seat left. You have 1 wheelchair on, you can take down 2 seats, that's 17 seats. And if you have all 4 down, no wheelchairs, then you got all 21. The mid-size bus did run nice and smooth. The RBOC, unfortunately, is a rattle box on the highway. Lots of banging and clanking, and with a lot of people next to each other, touching the seat belts and everything, it's making it very uncomfortable. The mid-size bus runs smoother on the highway, and because of the progressive thinking of cancel and because of the free fare, which is very successful, by the way, The increased ridership is putting a strain on our little bus. As I said, a bigger bus also can entice the ridership, both from Penticton to Summerland and Summerland back to Penticton. Unfortunately, we are getting some passengers that don't want to get on the small bus because it's crowded. They will pay the $5 and get on the 70, which is a full-size 40-foot bus. I feel also having the mid-sized bus can be beneficial for our economy, local economy, bringing people from Penticton up here. They will want to spend money up here. So supporting our wineries, our shops, just everything in Summerland in general. Despite the Penticton residents having to pay the fare, which they do. And finally, you got the email, all you probably got from Riley. I'm going to took some of his points. And with the 30 being an essential link between Penticton and Summerland for not only commuters, but students and people in general, a larger bus would demonstrate the commitment to transit infrastructure here in Summerland. Even if the RBOC was 3/4 full, people won't want to board because they don't want to feel like sardines. Because like when you sit right next to each other, you're kind of like touching each other, trying to put the seatbelts in. The aisle in the RBOC right now, between the seats, I would say is about 2.5 feet, 3 feet wide. So you're kind of shuffling sideways. Do you have the other picture? Listen, the next picture. Oh, there we go. This is from a friend of mine. This is the inside of one of our 30-foot vicinities. As you can see, the left side would fit one wheelchair, and the back row, where near the arrow is, that folds up, and those 4 seats fit another wheelchair, and you'd still have lots of room for standees, the whole back of the bus for people to sit. And then once the wheelchair is in spot, you can put down those foldable seats so you got more sitting room still. And then on top of that, I've gotten this request multiple times, and we feel like it's fallen off the radar. All trip service into Trout Creek. Because if you equivalent to looking at the schedule, it almost looks like it goes in basically 2 times a day into Trout Creek. And every day we're picking up about 5-6 people. And we've been hearing people want service into Trout Creek. They're coming up to the IGA to catch the bus into Penticton because there's the limited service into Trail Creek. So we'd like to, so in conclusion, besides you guys seriously look at upgrading the bus size, but also to look into all trip service into Trout Creek, because that is badly needed. It was on the radar and it feels like it has fallen off. And then, as I said, the small bus is becoming inadequate for the needs of the community and putting a strain that to the point where we're going to have to leave passengers behind. Because we apparently, from what I was told, standees are not permitted on the RBOC. And if we can allow it, then we can only go 80 kilometers on the 100-kilometer-hour highway. We can't go over 80 kilometers an hour. So that puts us delayed and we run late. So, and that is it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just stay there. I'm sure council will have some questions. Councillor Trainer.
Trevor, thanks a lot for coming and presenting and sharing your thoughts so that everybody could hear them. That was a good presentation. So the smaller bus is 26 feet, is that correct?
26 feet, 6 inches.
Okay, and it holds how many people?
21 without any wheelchairs on board.
Okay, and then the next size up is 30 feet?
There is 2 different types of vicinity buses. There's a 30-foot one, which is in Penticton they currently use on the routes 2 and 4. And then there's a 35-foot one, which I used that one day on this run, but it goes between Penticton and all Osoyoos usually. It is the Osoyoos buses. So we'd like to at least see a 30-foot minimum bus, but if we get a 35, either way, it's still much more of a comfortable ride for passengers and would, as I said, entice more people to get on the bus, being a bigger bus.
Okay. And
So
one more follow-up. Have you passed on your observations to your employer and to BC Transit?
I have submitted all my observations to my supervisor.
Okay.
He deals with BC Transit. As I said, I'm not here on behalf of BC Transit or Barron Smith, but I have passed everything on and they pass it on, and it almost kind of feels like it goes through the cracks a bit, but at some point, as I said, the last couple times last year, we were so overloaded that we had to turn people away. And like today, I had a total of almost 90 people all day on my bus. And some of the quieter trips I thought were busy.
What size is the 70 bus to,
It is a 40-foot.
that's a 40-foot? And do you know, do they need one that big?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you know if that if one that size is warranted to?
40-foot, no. Plus, we wouldn't be able to get into the health center with that size bus because we go into the health center as is.
Or you would with a 30 or 35?
I was able to do it with the 35, no problem.
Councillor Betts?
Thanks for your presentation, Trevor. It's nice to have somebody who's really on the front lines kind of bring it to our attention. And we actually our person, our coordinator who deals with BC Transit is here. So it's good that you can hear the feedback. So, as the driver, my question to you is, other than people's comfort, how often are we actually at 75% to 100% capacity?
75%, I would say most of the trips, except for the 12:15 departure, I'd say we're usually about 50%. Today, I would say it was about 70 because I had more people on the 12 o'clock trip than usual. 100%, it's hit and miss. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. It all depends. As I said, if people see the bus crowded, they're going to pay the $5 and get on the 70 bus to Summerland. So they're not on a crowded bus, basically. The last time I had a full capacity bus where I had standees, maybe September of last year.
Great, thank you.
So certainly not desirable to have to leave people behind, but I'll put this to you. What, in your opinion, would be better to have the same size bus, the small bus, but a more frequent service, or to have a larger bus on the same schedule?
Me and my supervisor actually sat and talked about this. Curious. If we did a bigger bus but the same frequency, we both think would actually cost a lot less than a smaller bus and increasing the frequency. Because then you're having more and more trips. Yes, that sounds good, but it's going to, in the long run, probably cost a bit more money than having a bigger bus in the same frequency we currently have.
Councillor P.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Trevor, I'm really pleased that you came in person on grassroots growing up ideas is a good thing. I thought Raleigh's letter of endorsement and explanation was well received in terms of better understanding. I wonder if, we're going to have to refer this back to staff to look at costing. I don't know how quickly or how often the contract is open to do that kind of examination. My question would be that since you've been on the route for a long time, do you feel that the opportunity of the larger bus will make a big difference in terms of the usage in general?
In my opinion, I do think it would be used quite well. I think, as I said, there would be more people coming from Penticton probably up here to do shopping, wineries, knowing that there's a bigger bus and more comfort. And it's also comfort for us too, but I tongue-tied myself. Seems to be going around today.
Thanks, Trevor.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah. Moving on to development reports, the ALC non-farm use application on Highway 97, and who's taking that? Laura? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The district is in receipt of a non-farm use application from the ALC for 15815 Highway 97. The applicant is not in attendance this evening. The subject property outlined in blue is at the corner of Highway 97 and Jones Flat Road. It currently contains an apple orchard, a single detached dwelling, and an accessory building. Both the accessory building and the single detached dwelling are proposed to be demolished. A lot of this will look familiar. The applicant is proposing a 2,100 square meter food processing facility on the northwestern portion of the parcel. The concept of establishing a regional food hub in Summerland has been a strategic priority of council since 2022. The applicants have looked at several properties to bring this proposal to fruition. They are now proposing this food hub at 15815 Highway 97. The facility is intended to be used for the Okanagan Food and Innovation Hub and locomotive organic delivery. It will also have a small retail portion available to the public. The subject parcel lies within the agricultural land reserve, where land must first comply with the provincial land use regulations of the Agricultural Land Commission. The ALC has confirmed that the proposed use and scale does not fall under the farm use definition within the ALC Act. As such, it requires a non-farm use application through the ALC to seek approval for the proposed use. Non-farm use applications are required to be submitted by the property owner to the ALC, which is then forwarded to the appropriate local government. The local government then reviews the application and presents it to council to decide whether to forward it to the ALC or not. If the ALC approves the non-farm use application, a successful OCP and zoning bylaw amendment application through the district is also required. The applicant is currently in the process of redesignating and rezoning the parcel. Staff have referred this application to internal departments, which are listed within the report. Of the internal department comments received, there are no objections. As this is an ALC application, not a direct application to the district is a referral agency and does not send external referrals. The application was presented to the Agricultural Advisory Committee at their March 20th meeting. Some of the comments and questions were regarding the type of ALC application and process, the impacts on ALR land, and they requested that a covenant be put on title to restrict potential non-agriculture uses from taking place in the future. The AAC recommended that council support this application being forwarded to the ALC. March's APC Advisory Planning Commission meeting was scheduled for March 28th. Quorum was not met, and as a result, the APC meeting was canceled. The district's APC bylaw requires any application to the ALC that requires council approval be presented to the APC. As staff understand, there are deadlines associated with provincial funding for this application. Staff are bringing the application forward without APC comments. If council wishes to send the application back to April's APC meeting, staff will do so. Staff support forwarding the application to the ALC with the recommendation of approval for the following reasons. Although not directly a farm use within the ALC Act, the proposal will support local agriculture within the region. Staff expect the Food Hub's proposed cooperative association will meet ALC's farm product processing policy requirements. The proposal for a 2,100 square meter food processing facility structure is close to the maximum permitted lot coverage of 2,000 square meters within ALC's policy for farm-related industrial uses. The proposed 293 square meter retail area meets ALC's maximum permitted retail sales of 300 square meters. And as the proposed location is adjacent to the highway, it may be well suited for truck access. The continued work and progress of implementing a food hub within the district supports council's strategic priority. And there is a need for a food hub in the region with current climate events that interfere with transportation routes separating the Okanagan from the Lower Mainland. Staff are recommending that council forward this application to the ALC with a recommendation of approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Council questions, Councillor Van Elfen.
I guess through our Director of Development Services, if I may. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is that something we should consider or could consider, a restricted covenant on that property? If, down the road, the food hub doesn't exist and somebody turns it into a RV sales or boat sales or whatever it may be, is that something we should consider?
Through your worship to Councillor Van Alphen, it's definitely something council can consider. They can also recommend that to the ALC as well, if the ALC wants to consider it as well. I would say though, from staff's perspective, the M3 zoning that is proposed, if it is successfully rezoned, would already kind of constrain future uses that are industrial. The M3 zone is agri-industrial uses only that are permitted within the ALR. So that would remove a lot of typical industrial uses that would be allowed in our standard industrial zones. So that would already be in place and kind of constraining what could be moved in there. It'd have to fall within that kind of agricultural product processing use category.
Mr. Mayor, thanks for the explanation. I'll be happy to put the staff recommendation on the table.
Okay, do I have a second? Councillor Betts, any further questions, comments? Just a question regarding the APC not having quorum to consider this. So that's unfortunate, I think. It would have been good to get their feedback. I'm just wondering if there's any, say if we pass this, can we still refer it back to them to get their comments? And if, because they look at these applications in quite a lot of detail. And if something comes up that we're not really aware of, the next meeting, I could always bring it back, but in the unlikely event, I would think. But I still think it would be worthwhile, hearing what they had to say.
Council can decide to structure this any way it chooses. The Agriculture Advisory Committee is an advisory committee for council. So you can request the committee to evaluate any planning decision that is before you. And that's kind of how the terms of reference are developed. I think we have kind of posed it here for council's, decision making. If council wants to defer the decision, hear from the AAC, and then bring it for us to bring it back at the next meeting, May 6th, we can do that as well. But we were aware, obviously, from the applicant's perspective, the grant time frames he's under. So we wanted to bring this forward for council's consideration tonight.
Yeah, the AAC did consider, it's the APC that didn't. It's.
Thank you, sorry.
Yeah, certainly we don't want to jeopardize the grant. That's number one, right? And that's why I think we need to, proceed with it. But I think I think we should still give the APC an opportunity to look at it and provide any feedback if they so choose. But anyway. Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Sorry, just for clarification, do you see putting it to the APC and then it coming back to council before we submit? The only reason I say is because I in no way would want to jeopardize this application, and they're just so pressed for time. So, council's been so supportive of this project, and I just wouldn't want to see the brakes go on. So can they look at it outside of council supporting the application as an external referral?
That'd be a question for our development staff, I think.
If I can, through your worship to Councillor Betts, like council would already have made the decision. Like we'd be forwarding that application to the ALC based on that decision. I think it would be more for information for council, whatever the APC came back for. Again, it's entirely up to council as to how you want to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just thinking ahead, so if they flagged any issues, if the APC flagged any issues, I believe the application is still held at rezoning at second reading. Is that right? Or at third reading, pardon me.
Yeah.
So would council potentially be able to bring forward any changes at that time, or would it negate the ALC application if there was any changes that were then made at that time?
Yeah, to your worship, to Councillor Betts. Unfortunately, they're different processes. One's an ALC application, the other one's a rezoning. We would already have forwarded the ALC application onwards to the ALC. We are still going to hold the zoning until we receive a decision from the ALC. Council would have the purview to still abandon the rezoning at a later point in time, but the ALC application would still proceed.
So the APC's already reviewed this on the rezoning. So they've looked at it already. They've already said, okay, well, that's fine. That's fair enough. Okay, Councillor Barkle. Okay, thanks. Okay, sorry for throwing a wrench into all that. And if there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed. That carries. 18.4, the monthly development service report. Did you have anything to say, Mr. Dolvin, or just questions? Anybody have any questions, as we usually do? None? Then we'll just need a motion to receive. Councillor Peak, second by Councillor Trainer. And through no discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. No business arising. Any notices of motion? No notice of motion. Councillor reports. Anybody have a report? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to remind council that on April 26th is the KVR AGM, and there will be a presentation. They've changed the steel tires on the old steam locomotive, so it was really quite interesting. And they're going to have speak about that with pictures. So if you're interested in coming and see how they changed the wheels on a 100-year-old steam locomotive, you can join us.
Excellent. Anybody else? Councillor Peak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I attended a really interesting open house put on by the Ornamental Gardens on Saturday. And they had a discussion on vermiculture and also on biochar. And it was most interesting. Barry Lowen was there. There was a company from Salmon Arm that is working on the biochar. And there was a professor from UBCM who's working on the viability of adding biochar to cement to create opportunity for carbon storage. And so they're looking at what percentage they can do it and still maintain good strength. So it was very interesting. This woman has 5 different degrees and she elected to come to Canada to practice her expertise, and what her classes are doing is most interesting, and they are getting funding from various opportunities that may be able to make these commercial uses. So it was a very good open house. I also wanted to let people know that the AGM for the food bank is Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. if anyone is interested in coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one's, I've had a pretty tame few weeks as my household suffered influenza. Not me, thankfully, but I just wanted to remind our Summerlanders that, and beyond, of course, that as of the Easter long weekend, most of our wineries and cideries and breweries in the Bottleneck Drive are getting back up into operations, and that, of course, you can take your friends and family to go visit our local small businesses who are obviously a little strained with increased cost this year and coming out of a really challenging 2024. So just a reminder to get out there and support local.
Thank you. Councillor Benelton.
Just a plug for our neighbors down the road. This Saturday will be the first outdoor farmers market in Penticton. And it'll be just chock full of wonderful Summerland farmers.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay, so before we adjourn, I need a motion to go back into close briefly under section 91G of the community charter. Councillor Benelton and Betts, all in favor? That carries. Thank you.